So recently, I've been on a Resident Evil kick. We did a lot of Resident Evil over on the Button Mappers. This year alone, we played through the 4 remake and the 2 remake, and I was really scratching that itch. So my Netflix went down because my girlfriend was paying for it, or her family was paying for it, and then Netflix stopped allowing you to share accounts. So before I went and got
Oh,
myself Netflix, I downloaded a free movie app, Tubi, which is decent. And one
to
of the
be
things
or to be or not to be.
today it's
Sorry.
2B because one of the things that was on there was 5 of the 6 Resident Evil movies. Now, there is a long legacy of Resident Evil media, which hopefully Alex can clarify. I have Alex of Turbo Zone, big Resident Evil fan over here, also Atari fan.
I don't just like Atari. I like other
He
things.
does, Resident Evil being one of them. So he's the perfect guest to have on for this segment. I also know he's not a big fan of these movies generally, although I know you'll be objective. So yeah, we're going to talk about the Paul Anderson films. These feature it's kind of an Alice saga. It's a spin-off. It's non-canonical, but it does tie in elements of the Resident Evil franchise. So Alex, happy to have you on today to talk all things Resident Evil movies.
Yeah, wait. I love Alice.
It's close to your name, Alex.
No.
So just generally, what is your experience with the Alice movies?
I got into Resident Evil in I was a teenager and I played Resident Evil 4 on the Wii. That was really my first time getting into it. And after then I kind of like went on to explore the rest of the series. I played the older games, I kept up with them. And I quickly realized that not only was Resident Evil popular within the video game, side of things, but there were these movies. So with me being a teenager, I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna watch movies based on some of my favorite games. And I remember the first one I watched was actually the second one, Apocalypse. And I watched part of the movie, and I remember this moment in the movie that stood out to me was she drives a big motorcycle through the church window, and there's like and like I remember even being a teenager being like, okay, this isn't Resident Evil, is it? Just kind of being like put off by it, and that was a bad first impression. And even from then, I went on to like explore the movie franchise, but I've never been able to like see it in the same light as the games. I've always kind of considered it its own thing, and I never lumped the two together. So that's still sort of how my brain works. I'm like, there's Resident Evil, and then there's the Resident Evil movies, So,
But there is decent Resident Evil media out there. Some of it's like more animated stuff. Can you just give us a brief snippet of what that's like?
yeah. So the Resident Evil, and I want to make sure I get the names right here. Let me bring this. I should have brought this up
Well,
earlier. I didn't know you were going to
I'll
ask me
just
about
talk about my experience with this. So I've avoided these a lot, like for a long time, because I knew they were shitty film adaptations of the series. And like you, Resident Evil 4 was my first Resident Evil. I did go and play other ones later, but they just seemed like such. I wouldn't even call them campy. They were just like action, like zombie movies that I think like kind of paled in comparison to other zombie movies. Other zombie movies felt like more horror inspired. Whereas, and even the Resident Evil games, I think of like, what can you achieve in a Resident Evil game? They make you feel like senses of like, you know, fright. And those movies are just like, she's just a monster. She's just a truck demolishing zombies.
So the first Resident Evil animated movie was called Degeneration, released in 2008. Now, the difference between these movies and the movies we're going to be talking about today is the animated movies tend to actually lean into the game series. Like the first one follows Leon and Claire, characters you should know if you've seen, play Resident Evil. And then there's other Resident Evil movies followed after. I think there's like Damnation, Vendetta, and Death Island. I think those are the four. I don't know if I'm missing any, but let's see, Vendetta. Hold on, I'll tell you. I think they just did Death Island. Yeah. And they all kind of use the actual characters from the Resident Evil games. They do vary in quality. Don't get me wrong, some of these are not good, but they are kind of like Resident Evil faithful movies that actually you can slot into the timeline somewhere. Of course, they also did that Netflix show, and they did what was it called? Fuck, it sucked too. Welcome to Raccoon City in 2001, which you and I were like texting about Resident Evil movies, and I even forgot that happened because I just wrote it out of my brain. But but yeah, so there's all sorts of other Resident Evil movies and shows and stuff that kind of tie into the main overarching Resident Evil narrative that the games have. But the Paul Anderson movie, right? It's Paul Anderson, yeah. The Paul Anderson movies do not even attempt to be part of that timeline.
Right. And we're going to unpack them today. I watched these 6 films over the past couple weeks. You've seen these throughout your life. So, we're going to have varying information. I've only watched each one once. So, we'll kind of unpack each one chronologically and see how we feel. If you like Resident Evil or you like this guy here, be sure to subscribe to him, Turbo Zone, and also subscribe to me, Majora T.
I don't think I've done any Resident Evil content on my channel.
Oh, you did that Saturn review.
Oh yeah, I did do that. I forgot. Well, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
I reviewed Resident Evil on Saturn one time.
Well, we're about to review the first Resident Evil, not talking about the game, the movie from 2002. This is the original Resident Evil by Paul W.S. Anderson. And as far as I remember, because it's been a couple weeks now, this movie starts off in the nest. It starts with kind of like a panic is setting in. All the Umbrella employees are trying to evacuate. They're about to be gassed off, killed, because the T virus has been let loose. So, in an effort to contain the T virus, this branch of Umbrella shuts down. And Alice, the main character, has something of a memory loss, but she goes in to try to, or actually, I think it starts off with her like being knocked out and then getting picked up by STARS employees or STARS, the military squadron. And another guy who's got some kind of memory loss. And then they basically are going on this escort into there to find the hidden object. And that's when the zombies start popping up. And it becomes kind of a race to get the T virus. What are your memories, thoughts, feelings on the first movie?
Yeah, I just want to ask you before we jump into like my feelings per se. I just want to ask you: do you know anything about Paul Anderson?
No.
No. Okay, so Paul Anderson, I guess this could be a good lead up for the first movie anyway. Paul Anderson mainly focuses on adaptations and stuff or taking other franchises. And his first big success was the original Mortal Kombat movie. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie before.
Yeah, that one's a classic.
It's actually pretty good. The first Mortal Kombat movie was actually pretty enjoyable. I wouldn't say good. It's actually pretty enjoyable. And he went on to do, of course, Resident Evil movies. He went on to do Alien versus Predator. He did that movie. Death Race is a big one that he did, and of course Resident Evil. And then after this, he would do like Monster Hunter. But he's sort of known to being like a cheap adaptation guy. You can sort of throw a adaptation his way and he'll do it within a budget. That's sort of his thing. The first Resident Evil movie, I think this is the only one of these 6 movies, there's 6, right, that I would actually call good. Is the first Resident Evil movie. And I'm actually going to praise this movie for its attempt at doing its own thing. While I don't really care about the character of Alice, she's only there because was the actress named Mila Yeah, is married to Paul Anderson, so he puts her in
Oh,
all the movies. That's why she's also the main character in Monster Hunter, because like, why not just put my wife in the my wife? Why not put my wife in the movies? But I like the idea of a confused Alice sort of thrown into these circumstances, and like seeing the inner workings of Umbrella. And there's some key scenes in this movie that really stick out to me. One of which is, of course, I don't know if you can guess it, but
wait, let me
it's
guess. Is
the
it the keypad scene?
okay. It's the laser room.
Oh, that's that one. They keep using it. They milk that one throughout this whole series.
Yeah, and that's well, and they even I think that's the only element of these damn movies that actually got brought over, because this is 2002, but
Right.
then they brought over the laser room in 4,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and I was like, that's the only, like, the laser hallway is the only damn, but it's such a cool scene in this movie whenever the guy gets sliced with the lasers,
Mm.
and it's like so memorable. And there are some other good moments within the movie too, but I think that's my biggest praise for this first one, is just it does attempt to just do its own thing and sort of lead, like, within that narrative, it could have actually worked as part of the overarching Resident Evil narrative, of just being like a one-off story.
Yeah.
uh,
And I think it ties decently into the idea of a first Resident Evil, like the explosion of the T virus, like the
mhm.
underground lab, the extraction, the fact it's on lockdown. You got these secret employees going back in, the computer mainframe. Spencer, we've infiltrated the mainframe. The Red Queen, I think they call her. She's like, "You're all going to die down here." And there are moments in there that I think stand out. Some of them are like I roll my eyes at, like they have the girl in the fish tank, and then suddenly, she opens her eyes, like you could tell. That's like the first zombie reveal. There's not meant like it happens like an hour into the film when the zombies first come out, which is good. Pacing is good. One of my favorite scenes is the keypad scene where like the zombies are coming and the Stars employees are like, "We have to get out of here," and then it's like, "I forgot the passcode." It's like, "Oh, 114. I got it." Opens the door, room full of zombies, comes in, just decks him out. It's just such a that's good. That's good writing. Like that's a good little juxtaposition there. So I like that element to it. Things that I wasn't as fond of. I mean, like the big villain in this one was a licker. Yeah, I think they had two of them, and he's like the big one that like stops the train. When I can't help it in my mind just compare it to like the first Resident Evil game. I was like, where's the tyrant? Is the tyrant gonna come up? And when it doesn't happen, it's like a little disappointing. The zombies themselves, I don't remember them being that like visually impressive. I don't remember what they looked like even. As the series goes on, they just kind of look like people with like bad makeup, and even the acting of the zombies gets bad. But in this one, I was just like, whatever, I'll accept it for what it is.
Yeah, speaking of disappointing, this movie was originally supposed to be done by George A. Romero, and was
Uh,
going to have characters from the first game like Barry Burton and the Tyrant involved. But Romero, because Romero did a commercial for Resident Evil 2, but that was scrapped, and they brought in Anderson. So they scrapped the version was made by George A. Romero, who is the zombie guy. That's his fucking thing, and so even though I do enjoy this first one, it's disappointing to know that we could have had a potentially better movie with a tyrant.
hey, it's not too late. Come on, Capcom.
That's true.
Yeah, pay him up. Pay the man. Well, that was movie one. Also, what is the critical reception at the time?
Let's see here. I put it all on this thing. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has a score of 35% based on reviews from 131 critics and an average score of 4.60 out of 10. That's not great.
Damn, and that's the first movie.
The consensus reads, like other video game adaptations, Resident Evil is loud, violent, formulaic, and cheesy. On Metacritic, the film has an average score of 33 out of 100 of 24 critics, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. And again, this is the first one, which I actually kind of like.
Me too. You know, and those words I don't think are necessarily bad things. I kind of want it to be formulaic and cheesy a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is not a bad one.
Yeah. Yeah, I would actually recommend this first one. If you're gonna watch any of these, just watch the first one.
Well, let's get into the ones you shouldn't watch. The sequel came out in 2004, Resident Evil Apocalypse. This one takes place in Raccoon City. It immediately follows the events of the first film, where Alice wakes up. She's in the testing lab, Umbrella, and then she makes her way out, and the world is basically on fire outside of her. Um, Trying to remember other major elements. Basically, like there's a whole lockdown on Raccoon City, and nobody's allowed to get out. They like shoot pedestrians, even their own employees, the Stars employees who are left behind. But one of the things is the guy in the wheelchair is a high priority evacuee, and they try to extract him because he developed the antibodies, but his daughter is still in the city, and she was supposed to get picked up by Stars employees, which she did, but the car got hit by a truck that was trying to evacuate really fast. So his daughter's on the loose. So he tries to hire Alice and her little squad of buddies that she picks up to go find the daughter. And I think he does, but there's all these other complications. Also, one of the guys that she was with, Alice, in the first movie, got bit, and then he got extracted at the end, and he was brought into the Nemesis project. So Nemesis becomes a huge factor in this movie. So there's a lot to unpack there. I'll start with your feelings. What are your feelings on the second movie?
This one reads as a loose adaptation of Resident Evil 3, which is Nemesis and Jill Valentine, and they're both major parts of this film per se. But I question why they felt, other than the fact that they need to use Mila Jovovich because married to Paul Anderson. Other than that, I question why we continue on with the Alice story even from here. Why they didn't they're in Raccoon City. They have Nemesis. They have Jill. Why do we need Alice at this point? Why not just make a movie about Jill Valentine? Because that's quite literally the game. And we have to like shoehorn the narrative with the other guy getting put into the Nemesis project. It's like you didn't need that. You didn't need any of that. You could have just made a movie based on Resident Evil 3 Nemesis and just you could call it Resident Evil Nemesis. You didn't even need Alice in this, but I felt like they were like, there's franchise potential and we have to continue on with the Alice character. And this is the point where I'm like, okay, well, yeah, okay, you're not even trying.
So they did something weird here, right? Because the first movie, like, are there cameos from other popular Resident Evil characters besides the individual zombies? No. But in the second one, it's like, okay, let's get Jill and let's get Nemesis. But it's the second Resident Evil movie, and Nemesis is the third game. So I'm like, what? Like, I can't piece this together in my head. You haven't even had a tyrant yet. And so it's like, let's just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, Mike Epps. Mike Epps is a comedian, but they put him in this movie, and it's like, that's Mike Epps. He's like one of the guys like in the squad, and like he's a key figure because like I guess he's not a Stars member, so Nemesis is given the operative, kill the Stars members, but he's standing in the crowd of 12 of them and doesn't get shot, and then like I'm like, okay, yeah, he's good for a laugh here and there. He's driving down the street at one point in his car, and he drives past the whore house, and the whores are coming out. He's looking at, but they're zombie whores, and then he crashes the car. He's like, ah, shit. And it's like, okay, this is a decent moment. Like this, you have some moments that I think are funny. Other ones are like, what the hell? Like the church scene, she's pulling out of the motorcycle.
The motorcycle.
Yeah. The key thing is they have to make Alice look more badass than the cameo Resident Evil characters. And that's weird to me because it's like, well, I attribute like any Resident Evil protagonist as being a badass, but suddenly they're like weaker than Alice. Okay, I kind of see what they're doing. They're trying to buff up her character. Uh, you know, I can understand from like a chronology framework why you go down this direction. It's just that it leads to some sloppy writing going forward.
I forgot that Carlos was even in this movie. He's from 3 as well.
Who?
He's
Oh, I
only
haven't
in
played
3.
so okay.
Yeah, it's like he's only in Resident Evil 3, so that's another cameo. But
I see. He's the guy that's like the potential love interest.
yeah, he's a character in Resident Evil 3. I forgot he was even in this movie until I was looking at the characters.
They also introduced something that's not very explored here, but that I really dislike in the next movie, which is Alice's telepathic powers.
God.
At one point, as she's escaping the building, the security guard looks at her 'cause she's detained or something. I forget by who, some guy in a chopper or something, maybe the doctor. She's looking in the camera screen, and then the guy's eyes and mouth start bleeding. So it's insinuated that she has this like telepathy. I don't remember if it's this one, but she's also like running down a building at one point. I think it is this one. Oh, maybe it's later, but I think they're doing like the Matrix thing. They're trying to do the slow-mo stuff. So a lot of action that I think just doesn't work because it's not as high budget as the Matrix. And also telepathy, what the fuck? Like I like it's just out of my world of like believability, you know?
Yeah, what okay, so here's my problem with Alice. Let's just call this segment. Here's my problem with Alice. This is that the Resident Evil cast are enjoyable characters because you get to live through these harsh scenarios with characters that shouldn't be able to make it out of these scenarios, right? That's sort of why you latch onto these characters. And whenever they go beyond that, like I know in 5 there's some silly stuff with Chris. Whenever they go beyond that stuff, it's kind of like, oh, okay, Alice immediately the first movie. It's like, okay, she has amnesia. She doesn't know what's going on with what's happening at that's interesting. As soon as you get away from that, it's like, okay, now she has superpowers. It's like immediately takes me out of it.
Which, to this movie's credit, they didn't do that till the end. So, like, for the first half, it's okay. And then it's just like, what? Nemesis not killing her at the end was weird. He, like, developed a conscience.
Yeah, that's also something I didn't like about this movie. Not because I'm a huge Nemesis fan, don't get me wrong. I mean, Nemesis was cool in the game. But because in Resident Evil games, the big bosses are usually terrifying because they don't have that, and they're coming for you no matter what. And it's always super satisfying to like see them like die and of course they usually, most like including Nemesis, most times it's like in the games it's like you kill him and he comes back, you kill him and he comes back, so it's always so satisfying when you get that final kill, and he's dead, you're like, I survived it. The idea of suddenly making that guy a character is kind of stupid.
Not great execution. What do the critics say about Apocalypse?
Oh, okay, hold on. Let's see here. Resident Evil Apocalypse has a 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it gets lower. It gets lower. Rotten Tomatoes 19%.
Wow.
Yeah, that's out of 134 critics. Whew, Jesus. Which makes it the lowest rated entry in the series. Wow, this is the lowest rated movie? Wow.
That's interesting. I think it gets worse, but
that is I definitely think it gets worse than this.
We should give our own Rotten Tomato percentages on these. That's what I think.
Okay, I'll do that. The first one I give it like a 60.
Yeah, I go 70.
And then this one I would give it like a 42.
I'm about the same, 40.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
It gets lower, and we're about to get lower.
Let's go to the
You
third
ready?
Resident Evil movie, Resident Evil Extinction. By
Okay.
now, this series should be extinct. The Alice series I'm talking about, not Resident Evil. Released in
Paul Anderson.
2007. Paul, we have a word from our
Paul.
sponsor. Alex,
Paul.
go ahead.
Paul. What are you doing? the, the first one's like we're in a laboratory. It's kind of resident, umbrella. That's cool. That's cool. Second one's like okay, we're in Raccoon City, and the third one's like I watched Mad Max the other day. What if we did that?
This is bad. This was like, I've turned this on. I was like, the desert? Like, I get it, like apocalypse or whatever, but the goal is they're traveling along the Mojave Desert. Alice is still the protagonist, but you have the group of other, squad members slash escapees slash refugees, and they have like a guy who drives a school bus with kids. um, Alice is on her own lone wolf path, and she stops in a gas station, for gas for her motorcycle, and she finds a map that says Alaska. That's the place. That's where the survivors are. Random pamphlet, which I mean, I guess it makes more sense later, but the other one is just, they have not received that message. They're just kind of like trying to survive. They're kind of like side by side, but Alice doesn't really confront them at many points. And then when they need her most, she shows up and uses her telepathic powers to save them from a group of scorching, or to project fire onto a group of like zombie bats or zombie birds, like all these crows. It's a very weird movie. Also, there's a clone thing. Alice finds out she's one of a bunch of clones, sees them as she goes into the umbrella factory in the Mojave Desert. I forget even why she goes there.
We have some more cameos in this movie. Carlos is still here for some reason, and the two big ones are Claire Redfield, who is one of the most badass Resident Evil characters, is again sidelined in this movie for Alice because Alice has to be the badass, and the big bad himself, making one of too many appearances, is Albert Wesker.
He's a very small cameo
also
in this one, but he is important contextually.
yeah, he's in some of the other movies, but it starts one of my least favorite trends with these live action movies of what I call like the Wesker fetishism.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's like Wesker in the games is, yeah, he's a prominent role, but he's really only in a couple of them at big time. And even then, and like the biggest one he's in is 5, and he's stupid in that game. But like, and I feel like these movies had a direct influence on that, on Capcom being like, well, people like stupid, strong, evil Wesker, so we gotta do a volcano fight in 5. It's like, damn it. Stop. But yeah, no, I think my biggest thing with this movie, for one, why did we turn the series into Mad Max? You had a zombie apocalypse thing in a city, and then like a lab in a city. Then why are we in the desert now? Why make that choice? And the other complaint is the fact that we have, again, a character that could have led a film, Claire Redfield, and she's sidelined because we have to show how badass Alice is.
The worst part about it is, like, as I'm watching these, I see, like, oh, they pull up to a gas station. That's like the beginning of Resident Evil 2. No, it's not. It just happens to be a gas station. It's like they're teasing me, but not in a way that, like, I appreciate, in like a you could have done so much better kind of way. This is the most forgettable one to me. Honestly, I just kind of checked it out of my brain. I just remember scenes, and zombie crows. When have there been zombie crows?
Actually, I think Resident Evil 1 had crows.
They have crows, but are they
I
zombified?
assume.
It became a
I
thing
mean,
where
they
it's like,
attack you. Unless they're just assholes.
yeah, they're just punks. Oh, maybe there is some in the first game, but I remember in 4 you just shoot them for fun, and they drop garnets.
I was thinking in the first game. Do you remember in the first game? Do you remember the room where you had to like there was the paintings and the switches, and there's crows in that area. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So
so
it
like
becomes a whole thing
I
where it's like
guess
thousands of crows swarming like mosquitoes. It's very strange.
yeah, maybe not
They
that.
break into the bus by like using their beak power, and Alice has to project a force field of fire.
The fact that you said beak power. You want to okay? So anybody listening that hasn't seen these movies and you're like, why did they even keep making these? You want to know why they kept making this? Because this movie had a budget of $45 million and they made $147 million.
Ooh.
That's why. Because Paul Anderson could do that. That's why they kept making these damn movies.
And if you went off the first two alone, you might expect like, a decent tie-in. This ain't it. But it grossed.
Nope.
It grossed some gross reviews. What do the critics say about Resident Evil Extinction?
On Rotten Tomatoes, it has an overall rating of 25%. That's better than the last one, with 101 reviews. Let's see. Critics have a consensus reads that Resident Evil Extinction is more of the same. Its few impressive action sequences unable to compensate for the what is it?
Oh,
I can't. Yeah.
pedestrian.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Pedestrian plot. Yeah. So better than the last movie. Not good though. It's 25%. Still very low.
I think this is worse than
And
the previous movie.
Oh, me too. I think even though the last movie was not good, I think the last movie still has elements of Resident Evil, and then this movie is like, okay, we're not doing Resident Evil anymore.
Yeah, it's just so much. Why? Like, why is there a freaking umbrella base in the like in this random part of the desert? I can't remember why they went there. That should show you.
No, me either. And
Because I remember elements of the first two movies, and I've seen these longer ago.
you're starting the whole thing with the superhero Alice and the clones. It's just again, it's like they're just starting like to jerk themselves off. They're like, okay, well, we're just gonna do our own thing, and you're gonna like it. You're gonna love it. It's like,
I think the
so what? This
doctor,
isn't even Resident Evil.
injects himself in the bunker, but I still don't remember why she went there. I don't know. I'm not gonna try and figure it out forever, but yeah, this one is forgettable. If I was to give it a rating, it'd be a 20. It would be lower than the critics gave it.
Yeah, I'd give it like a fucking 15. I think this is the point. I have a box set that's the trilogy, and this is the point in that box set where I'm like, oh shit. Oh shit. This is getting bad.
This is really bad.
But it continues on to 2010's sequel movie, Resident Evil Afterlife.
Yeah, we can.
Teddy, I need a plot recap here. What happens
time
in Resident
for me
Evil
to tell you
Afterlife?
about the narrative of Resident Evil Afterlife in 2010. This is Alice following through on the hidden messages to get to Alaska, but first she makes a pit stop in Tokyo with her clone army to take down the Albert Wesker Tokyo branch. And the movie starts off with like this scene of like the first Tokyo outbreak. And you can tell, I think they're going for like an aesthetic thing here. Like, they get to show off Japan. And it's, how this thing is a global phenomenon, not just in the United States. Kind of confusing how she got there. I guess she got a chopper from the Umbrella base in the previous one. But how she came in with like dozens of clones, I don't know. And all but the original one die. They all get killed in this massacre. And I think she kills Wesker for the first time in the Tokyo branch. Um, and this big epic fight, and she blows up the whole thing, and then she heads on her way to Alaska, where the survivors are supposed to be, the survivor colony, where there's no outbreaks and no cases. Oh, you know what? I think she gets on the plane with Wesker. Wesker's flying off, and then they go together. And I think he robs her of her powers. Good, get that shit out of here. The ESP, she doesn't have it. It's bogus. It's nonsense. But she's like, "Thank you for taking my powers." And I think Wesker escapes or something. So from there, she goes to the point where the transmissions are happening, and there's nobody there. There's only empty choppers, and I think it's Claire has like this little locust looking thing on her chest. She's being brainwashed, and she tries attacking Alice, and then she removes it, but she has no memory retention. So then they just go to California to try and find.
Are you sure that's not? Are you sure that's not Jill?
I'm not sure. I guess it is. I think you're right. It is Jill.
Because that's like a plot line from the games.
It could be them. Yeah. So let's say it's Jill then. They go to California. I forget why. I just can't remember. But there's more survivors there. They fly the chopper onto this like building where there's a SOS sign, and it's to get to Arcadia, and Arcadia is the name of the ship in California. And then there's this big scene with the zombies breaking into the building, and a couple of them, like the survivors, trying to get onto Arcadia's ship and eventually getting there. And then there's another Wesker face-off where he's on the ship, but he's got the superpowers, and apparently Arcadia, the ship, is like taken over by it was a hoax. It's not a real transmission. They were just luring survivors to kill them. Why is that happening? Don't know. Very confusing. So that's the best plot recap I can do.
So this movie came out at a particularly dark time. The next one, too, in the Resident Evil series, because this is right after 5, and that's why we have Superpower Wesker.
Okay.
And we also have Jill, brainwashed Jill, and Claire was here still for some reason, even though she wasn't in 5 at all. And Chris, we finally get Chris Redfield, who should have been probably in the first movie.
They get Schofield. They get the guy from Prison Break. He was really popular at that time, and he's the cameo, the bald guy. They were like imprisoning him. It's coming back to me now. But Jill's been brainwashed, so she doesn't know that's her brother, and then there's like some saga there.
Yeah, and this one I remember seeing. I have it on DVD. I know I've watched it. I don't remember a damn thing about this movie, but I remember the trailers because at the time in 2010, again, real big into Resident Evil at this time, and all the trailers were for the 3D version of this movie, and they always showed off the scene of Wesker throwing his glasses, and they were like towards the screen or something, and I was like, what a stupid idea. Like, the fuck is going on? But yeah, this is definitely my lowest point in the Resident Evil series. Was like this was between 5 and 6, and we have Superpower Wesker, and again, there's like they're adapting a story from Resident Evil, which is 5. Which didn't need to be adapting in any sense because that story is not good, and making it also about Alice. So Alice fights Wesker, of course, and they gotta have some Alice power fantasy stuff going on. And at this point, I question everything about like what their goal is with this series. Like, again, so far removed from Resident Evil and like what its identity is at this point. We're like globe trotting now.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. This is like freaking world tour. Like, why Japan? So it's a vengeance story. First, I'm going to kill Umbrella. Then I'm going to find the survivors. But then we have to go to California. What? That's like the cameos are the places. Japan, Alaska,
And
California.
you okay? So the last one was $45 million budget, 147 million box office. This one, I don't know if you do. You want to guess what this one is?
50 million and 200.
It's the budget was 60 million. The box office was 300.2 million.
Wow. Okay.
So
These are money makers.
why wouldn't they continue on with this shit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and they got
Okay.
some big names and his wife.
And his wife.
So what is
All right,
what do
what
the
was-
critics say?
Afterlife got a Rotten Tomato score of 21. That's 1% more than the last one.
No, that's 4% less. But
The
it's 4% higher than mine because they were 25 on the third movie.
Oh, okay. I thought it was 20. Sorry. Yours was 20.
Yeah.
That was 25. The consensus states a dim-witted and lifeless as dim-witted and lifeless as its undead antagonist. This is a phenomenon. People fucking trash these movies and they made $300 million.
They're getting away with it.
It's amazing.
Yep.
Oh man. Oh, here we go. Okay. 2012 Retribution.
Wait, we got to give our ratings. What do you? Can you? Give a
Oh,
rating?
five. 5%. I'm
Yeah.
good at 5%.
This one's lower for me. I'm trying to think if it has any redeeming qualities. I guess I like the Tokyo scene. It's a little better than the desert one. So I can't put it lower than that. The desert one I gave it 20, but this isn't much better, so I'll go 22. You want to go lower than desert on this one?
At least the desert was a neat setting. I don't know. Like, at least I could have seen it working in some sense. I don't know. I haven't seen Resident Evil in the desert before. I hate Super Wesker shit so much. So
5. Okay.
I tell you what. No, I tell you what. I give the last one 15. I'll give it 10. I'll give it 10%.
Okay.
Because I'm sure it'll get lower from there.
Okay. Well, let's go to 2012. The end of the world? No, but it's also not the end of the Resident Evil series. It's Resident Evil Retribution. 5 out of 6. Time to pay tribute. Dude, this one starts on the boat in Arcadia. It spends 10 minutes playing backwards in slow motion. It's a big cinematic experience. You should honestly just watch the intro again because it was like half the movie. And then they play it forward. And yeah, this is Alice like in the subterranean bunker having to get rescued. This is where the all-star cast comes in. Not really cast, but like the cameos. This is where you have everybody. Ada Wong, Leon Kennedy, Barry. Wesker is the good guy trying to get them to rescue her. You see returns of like, other people that have died who are now cloned in these Umbrella set pieces. Jill is now re-brainwashed into working for Umbrella again. Alice has a daughter. This is nuts. There's just so much shit going on.
I remember I rented this movie and I watched it with a group of people who've never seen any of these movies before. And it was the funniest goddamn experience of my life. Because they sort of knew like the Resident Evil game, so they knew like who Leon was, they knew like who Wesker was, but they've never seen these fucking movies before, and I was like, oh, they're bad. They're like, how bad can it be? We do a Resident Evil movie, so we started watching it, and I remember like halfway through, they were all like, can we turn this off? And I remember being so upset because, like, I mean, my favorite character is fucking Leon. I also like Barry a lot too. So, like, they're throwing them in this movie, but it's still a fucking Alice power fantasy.
Yep.
You know?
Alice stronger than Leon. Barry gets killed. Like Barry, what does Barry do in this movie? He just looks like a dumbass. Oh my god. Alice has a daughter. Okay, so fine. That's fine. Just her clone reality has a daughter, but she always wakes up with the memory loss, but like, in these simulations, she's like, "Hi, honey," like she's lived this life. Um but it's just like a big question of why? Who's taken over? Wesker's not even in charge anymore. It's just the supercomputer at this point. So it's almost like an Alice fantasy too. That was one thing we haven't really touched on. They really exoticized the wife. She's always waking up naked. Like, I think in the second movie they
Oh
show
yeah.
her tits.
Oh yeah. They
Which
again.
whatever.
This is basically it's basic. These Resident Evil movies and Monster Hunter are basically just Paul Anderson being like, check out how hot and powerful my wife is.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
This is 10 years of these movies, So she's literally aged 10 years at this point. So I don't even know what to say on this one. She's breaking out of the ice caps. Oh my god, they bring in the Las Plagas. And the girl injects the Las Plagas into her neck to become super powered. So they're supposed to like in the 4 game, it's like their head blows up and they have the tentacles, but now they just open their mouth and like out comes 4 tentacles. Like bleh. It's like a little reduced Las Plagas. Very bad.
We got a slight decline here. The budget was 65 million, more than the 5 million more than the last one, and this one pulled in 240.2 million. So a bit of a decline from 3.4 million, whatever it was, from the last one.
Still a net positive.
Teddy, let's play a game. Guess the Rotten Tomatoes score. Da-da-da, da-da-da.
30.
Da-da-da. Oh, you're close. It's 28.
Oh.
People tend to like this one more than the last few. What was the first one? The first one was 35, so that's the highest.
I think what
People like this
might
last
like
more
is
than the
like,
last 3.
I think while the cameos may not be substantive, they just look the part. I think of that Netflix series where it's like just you completely changed everything. To see Leon Kennedy with like the, or like Ada with the dress, I guess that is kind of like
It's like
a good feeling for a Resident Evil fan.
it's the meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Leonardo DiCaprio where he's like, oh, that's the thing. You're seeing that meme before where he's pointing at the screen. it's that, but in the theater, whenever Ada Wong pops up, oh, it's Ada Wong,
Mm-hmm.
And so I can see people, big fans going to the movies and being like, I got to see Leon and Ada and Barry, It's not good though. All right. Yeah, 28%. Let's see. What's the consensus here? Resident Evil Retribution offers everything one might reasonably expect from the 5th installment in a heavily action-dependent franchise, which means very little beyond stylish, hollow CGI enhanced set pieces.
Accurate. And stylish but hollow.
There you go.
Yeah. What do you give this one?
I've only watched this one the one time. I don't know if I like it more or less than the last one, so I'm gonna say 10 again.
I do like it a little more. Decent production value too, at least in the beginning. But the plot is just still what the fuck, and then the power play stuff. 25. I'll go 25. It's not good, but it's better. But
Right.
we have to end this saga. All good things must come.
So the last one
to a
came out in
close.
2000.
This is not one of those, but it
Yeah.
will come to a close. But yeah, 2012.
2012 was the last movie. This is 2017. So this is the longest gap we've had between movies.
And they really want to cement this thing as done deal. Resident Evil, the final chapter. 15 years of
Paul Anderson, he was working hard. He was making sure this send-off is the best movie they could possibly make.
not. Big Borat not. I checked the
Nah.
hell out. This is the only one I had to pay for, and I don't regret so we could do this video, but like, yo, $4, don't go spending it on this movie. This is bad. The
People
last
did.
one closes off.
People did. Okay.
No, you go.
Sorry. No. Go ahead.
You first.
Okay. I was gonna say $4. People spent more than that. I'll go ahead and reveal the budget, the box office here. The budget was the lower than the last few. This is $40 million budget. The box office is 300. Was it 312? Jesus Christ.
Wow.
That's more than the last few
As much
movies.
as the-
What was the? Oh, hold on. I didn't check the box office on the first couple. Let me go check those.
No, that's more than
real
5
fast.
times. 40 million and 300. That's like 8 times, the amount you invested. That's crazy.
So I didn't check the first movie or Apocalypse. The first movie was $33 million budget, $103 million box office, and the second one was $45 million budget, 129. So the final chapter is the best they've ever performed. $40 million budget, lower than the last few movies, the most they've pulled into the box office.
I can't tell you why. This is not a good movie in the slightest. First off, it completely drops everything plot. Well, not everything plot wise, but a lot of it. Where is Alice's daughter? She was she saved her at the end, and then like Wesker jabs her or something with like the T virus, says you got a job to do. And then this one, I think she starts off by like hunting Wesker down again, and Wesker's suddenly the bad guy. He says you got to go back to the hive to find the frickin' airborne antivirus. But the Red Queen tells her about it or something. She goes to the hive for the Red Queen. Red Queen tells her is suddenly a good person, tells her the antivirus exists. So she has to go back to Raccoon City, where there's a group of people staking out Raccoon City who are survivors. But the doctor is a bad doctor, and there is an airborne virus that she unleashes. There are many clone Weskers. She is apparently not the original Alice. The original Alice suffers from a disease. She's the doctor's daughter, but she ages fast. And so the original Alice is there, and she's really old looking, but she's not old. And she says, "You're the Alice that I always wish I could be." And apparently the Red Queen is Alice, but they cast a different Red Queen than from 2002 because they can't. And then she says, "You're fired, Wesker," and then he gets hit by an elevator.
Teddy, I want a video. I want a video of you going to like a Wendy's or something and explaining the plot of Resident Evil, the final chapter, to the clerk.
That's horrible. That's bad. B capital B B.
While you were explaining that nonsense, I have a theory. I was doing some research here. This movie was released January 25th or 27th here on in 2017. Resident Evil 5 was released January 24th, 2017. Sorry, not 5, 7. Resident Evil 7 was released January 24th. This was 27th. I think that's why they made a shit ton of money. Resident Evil 7 was a phenomenal game. And I think people were like, Resident Evil's back, baby, and there's a movie now. And they went and saw it. Genius timing.
It's also the final nail in the coffin for Alice. I'll give it a point for that. Everything else?
Yes!
Garbage.
I'll say I haven't watched all this one. I don't plan to. I don't want to. I thought we were done, until 2017 rolls around. Resident Evil at this point in the game, again, 7's coming out, looks like to be a huge revitalization of the series, which it was. They've been doing great since 7. And even before then, we had the two, what they call what's the 3DS one called? Fuck.
Revelation?
Revelations, yeah. They had the Revelations 1 and 2 were also kind of like a return to the form in a way too. So it was like Resident Evil's already kind of building their brand back up at that point. And I think by the time this movie came out, I was like, are we really doing this, guys? Are we? Okay. Like, at least it's the final one, which I don't believe any movie that has that tag. To give you an example, I have a box set of Saw, and in my box set, which came out in 2015, the box set, the last movie in the Saw box set is Saw: The Final Chapter. Do you want to guess how many movies have come out since Saw: The Final Chapter?
3?
3, yes.
Whoa.
Spiral, Jigsaw, and then they just did Saw X. So that was not the final chapter. So whenever this said the final chapter, I was like, I don't fucking believe you. Turns out it was.
Yeah. We got a decent turn. 6 years now? 23? 17?
Jesus.
So have you watched any of this or some of it?
I followed it when it was coming out. I more just watched it through like other people's experiences watching it. Like I'd watch like the videos where people were like reacting to it and stuff, and I was like, I'm not watching that. I'm not watching that. And you know what? I'm still not gonna watch it. Maybe someday if I find like a DVD copy for super cheap, I might check it out. But yeah.
I don't blame you.
But
You will nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because nothing happens.
There has to be some marketing wizardry that they did with this. Because I was curious to see what after this movie, they quickly turned around. They were like, okay, we're still doing Resident Evil movies. It's just not going to be that. And they started planning what would become Resident Evil Return to Raccoon City, which I know you haven't watched that one, right?
No.
Okay. It's its own thing. It tries to be more faithful to the source material. Came out in 2021. It had a budget of 25 million and it pulled in 42 million. So obviously something was the marketing with the Alice shit worked, because that's not great. And the critical reception is not as bad. It's still bad. Like I think on Rotten Tomatoes was like 30%, so about as much as the first
Really?
Resident Evil movie. Yeah.
Bizarre.
But
those are bots.
Yeah.
Also, with the reboot, you got to take into account pandemic timing.
Yeah, that's true. 2021. So maybe box office. Maybe, yeah, trying to read it based on the box office isn't fair at that point, because people weren't really seeing movies. So that's fair.
But this one, yeah, I can't see this. Listen, people give it a 30. I give it a 3. This is a single digit. I couldn't follow the plot. Like, it's just so many.
Oh, no, sorry. 30 was for the reboot.
Oh, okay.
because I was talking about the box office response and the reboot reception. Teddy, Rotten Tomatoes response for this movie is 37. That's the highest. 37.
Why?
37.
What did they like? What was good about this?
The consensus was from critics that Resident Evil Final Chapter may prove mind-numbingly chaotic for the for the unconverted, but for fans of the vulnerable franchise, it offers fittingly kinetic conclusions to its violent post-apocalyptic saga.
No.
So people that watch the movies may like it. I guess that's what they're trying to say.
Even if you watch the Alice movies, the shit ain't concluded. Her daughter's not even present in the movie. You didn't watch the fucking movie before this. What the fuck? What do you mean fitting conclusions? Wesker gets hit in the head by an elevator because he got fired after fucking OG Alice is apparently the CEO of Umbrella sitting in the wheelchair. Albert Wesker, you're fired. Elevator drops. That's a fitting conclusion.
What a dumb twist. What a dumb twist.
The fucking doctor gets killed by his own clone, who's like a psychopath driving a tank with like a who's like a devout like Jesus guy or something. No. No. This is tragically bad. This is the worst. This is the worst movie I may have ever seen. It's worse than the desert phenomenon, and that was bad.
I know you're not big into Monster Hunter, but I would love for you to watch that movie. Because you know what it is? It's them taking a character that's not Alice. It's not Alice. Not Alice. No. It's them taking a character who is not Alice, and still played by Mila Jovovich, and throwing her into the Monster Hunter world through a magical portal, and making her fight monsters, and not doing anything with the Monster Hunter world. And then it's just more Alice power fantasy, basically. It's just like, yeah, but this stuff she's fighting like Rathalos. I'm curious. Hold on. Let me see how much that made. I want to know. Did it still work? Did the magic still work?
What do you think? I think it worked, but probably not to the same extent.
Oh, it did not.
Damn.
Oh, we won't be seeing Monster Hunter 2 anytime soon. The budget was 60 million. The box office was 44. It lost money. That's the first time they've lost money with that Capcom's lost money with Paul.
Oh, it was 62 was the investment?
60 was the budget, and 44 was the box office. So they actually lost money with Monster Hunter
too, but it probably wasn't. I mean, you know.
Yeah, what was the year? Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. It did come out in 2020, so you know what? That's fair. But still, he clearly has no intentions of stopping this nonsense. Capcom likes money, I guess, so they're gonna let him do it. Who knows? Maybe after Monster Hunter they won't, but yeah, I was talking to you or text about these movies, and I told you about a story. I still have it somewhere, but I don't wear it anymore because I think the chain broke and I bought another one. But I have a Resident Evil pendant that's the umbrella symbol, and I used to wear it a lot. And I remember I was at work one day, and I had a customer at the job I was working at the time. They go, "Oh, Resident Evil," and they pointed at my pendant, and I was like, "Yeah, Resident Evil." They go, "I love those movies," and I just looked at them and I just stopped. I was just like, okay, I just went on. I was like, I'm not doing this.
That is rough. These movies were rough, but somehow I still enjoyed watching them, even knowing they sucked. There's really not a lot of video game crossovers into the movie world. So, and this is one of like those ones, like the first ones, I want to say. So, I don't love them. I probably wouldn't watch most of them again, although a couple of them are watchable. If somebody put it on, I wouldn't object to it, unless it's like a couple of these, and then I'm like, maybe not. The highlights for me were, I think, the first movie, just the Hive, and the cameos in the what even was it? The fifth movie? Yeah.
Afterlife?
Was it
or something? Or
Retribution?
Retribution? Oh, well, with like Leon and Barry and stuff.
Right.
I'd say the first movie is worth a watch.
From their enter
the other four movies are worth a watch only if you're watching them while drinking with some friends, because that could be fun. That's like a nice drunk, late night watch with friends. But like other than that, if you're actually interested in watching like a good zombie series and stuff, that's not. I would even say watch the Netflix show over that. I think that was better.
Probably is better writing for sure. The writing is not
still not great, but better.
Yeah, that one has its own problems that are not these. But that was watchable for a season. It amazes me that Netflix season got shit on as much as it did, considering what we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
I understand some of it, but these are bad movies.
Yeah. Resident Evil, like I said, not counting the CG stuff, the like animated movies, Resident Evil's had a rocky track record with live action adaptations.
I think that last review for the last movie, the final chapter, that's like forced positivity. You're giving it a 37. It's not good. Not a single one of these scored above 40. That means they all fail.
Nope.
They all failed. But they made a lot of money.
I could go the rest of my life without ever seeing these movies. But they're here, and makes me appreciate the higher highs of the Resident Evil franchise,
Yeah, I got some stuff to look forward to with the series. Well, thanks for joining me on this adventure through the Alice saga, the Paul's wife saga, Mrs. Anderson.
Paul's my wife.
Resident Evil featuring Paul's wife.
My wife. They're like, Paul, who we're gonna cast? He was like, my wife.
Directed by Paul Anderson, starring my wife.
Starring Borat.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe we'll be back to talk more media adaptations in the future.
That'd be fun. I would love to do like the Mortal Kombat stuff. That'd be fun at some point.
True.